I'm Scott Simi, Chief of Content with InDro Robotics, and joining me on this edition of our Soundbite micropodcast is InDro's Training and Regulatory Specialist, Kate Klassen. Welcome, Kate.
Thanks, Scott.
So we've spoken before about the new Transport Canada RPAS regulations. You now have a Level 1 complex course underway on fly.com, and that's fly with two Ys. So how big of a jump is this in terms of knowledge requirements from someone who already has their advanced RPAS certificate?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's often something that comes up because folks, when they're inquiring about getting their Level 1 complex, they don't realize that the knowledge requirements are new and that they are mandatory. So even if you've taken ground school for your advanced certificate previously, that was based on the Transport Canada document of required knowledge for small RPAS in visual line of sight, which is TP15263, and the new Level 1 complex is TP15530. And so it is the same main areas that would be familiar, talking law, RPAS, meteorology, navigation, human factors, that sort of thing. But it's a whole new depth on those, and it's really operational focused, obviously looking at more beyond visual line of sight type of applications, but it is quite a bit, a few layers deeper than you would have looked at from an advanced perspective. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the requirements are setting you up to, at least in the way that we've formatted ground school, to kind of remove some of the burden, I'll say, that you'll have at the end of the certification, where there's process and like procedures that you need to develop. And so we've worked those into the ground school so that it's not one big task list at the end of things, but there are it's a bit more of an operational focus, deeper into the troubleshooting and like application of available tools. So instead of just like, this is a GFA, this is what a front looks like, this is showing you where precipitation is happening, it's taking those weather charts, looking at a route that you might intend to fly, understanding how the changes are happening across the region, and trying to apply that weather knowledge along a route rather than to a specific point, forecasting time as well as the travel that those weather systems can take. So it is a bit more of an operational focus, and it's a whole new depth than what you might have encountered on your advanced ground school.
I heard an acronym go by there, which I didn't recognize, which may indicate that I too should be signing up for this course. What does GFA stand for?
GFA is a graphical area forecast. It's a Nav Canada product that provides like really high level weather information, not altitude high level, but just like an overview of weather information by region. So it'll show you where like the high and low pressure systems are, and where the fronts are moving, and any precipitation and icing and thunderstorms, cloud cover, those kinds of things are associated. So it's really it's a really helpful forecasting tool when you're trying to look beyond just your kind of localized area and understand, perhaps for areas that don't have a lot of reliable local weather reporting tools, to understand how these systems might move through and impact operations in those more remote areas, which applies to Level 1 complex type operations.
Gotcha. So I'm not asking for names, but just in general, who are the kinds of people who have signed on?
Keeners. No, they're folks that are have been operating up to this point and might have held an SFOC for a version of beyond visual line of sight flying, but see a real advantage in the extension of their operations that they'd be able to offer, the services that they'd be able to provide if they were able to do things beyond visual line of sight. So there's a few that are in larger organizations, and they're going to kind of be that first guinea pig that goes through the Level 1 complex process and kind of figures out what the process is going to look like for everybody else. And then there's a couple of folks that are with search and rescue organizations, someone who runs their entire drone program, like they are the drone program. So they are looking at how they can extend their capacity and increase the services that they can provide, but they're just one individual, so they will be the level 1 complex pilot, but they'll also be the accountable executive and the person responsible for maintenance and all these new titles that are required under the RPAS operating certificate.
Great. I like to keep these podcasts short, and I'm looking at my list and I still have several more questions. So I'm going to ask you to keep your answers as short as possible. And this one is super easy for a short answer. How many hours is the course?
20 hours of instructor-led content is the minimum. Ours will probably be a little bit more than that.
Obviously, it depends on what knowledge you have going in, but for an average person with their advanced license, what kind of commitment is involved in terms of study?
Really, it's just attending the sessions. So that we're providing them live, but you can also watch recorded versions. It still meets that instructor-led requirement. So it's the 20 hours, and then there are kind of homeworky type tasks that will match up with the work that you'll have to do regardless to have the processes and procedures that are required in the cars. So depends on where your organization is at in terms of what those processes look like already. Like, do you have a incident and accident investigation process that already exists that you're just kind of linking to within your processes, or is that something you need to develop from scratch? Those are going to impact that time commitment. But the nice thing is if you do it now, you have until November 4th to be able to get those things in place so that you're ready to operate.
The big changes come into effect, as you mentioned, November 4th, and most of the discussion that I've been hearing has been around routine, low-risk BVLOS flight, which I'm assuming will be used primarily for long-range data acquisition, possibly deliveries. What do you think opening that door will do for the industry?
It's really positioning Canada as a testbed for research and those advanced air mobility or kind of evolving aviation ecosystem type of like research and development. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done. We need some technology solutions for detect and avoid that are going to enable the types of operations that the regulations will permit. But I see a lot of social use applications, kind of social benefit applications, and search and rescue and remote, like delivery to remote locations that might have transportation restrictions in other ways. So I think we're going to start to see those real kind of key benefits come out. And I think that's a great way of letting things develop in the industry too, because then you get kind of the general public on board with this increase in operations too.
I'm going by memory here, but I believe both advanced and L1C RPAS certificate holders will be able to operate medium-sized drones up to 150 kilograms with no SFOC. Obviously, and probably thankfully, there aren't many recreational pilots who will have a drone that size. But do you think allowing this is a sign that TC has greater confidence in the technology, the professionals, or both?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, there definitely are some model RPA, they were considered just recreational model aircraft that could probably push up into definitely above 25 kilograms, those scale models. But yeah, I think we've seen over the years since we really started looking at these things 2018, 2019 and tracking incidents and that sort of thing, there's been huge kind of reliability in the technology and redundancies and fail-safes that are available. So I think that helps as well. And then having this knowledge requirement makes it so that the folks that are putting themselves in those situations where they have to accept a level of risk, TC is comfortable now that between training and redundancies, like the technology and the kind of all the pieces of the system, including the human operator component, that there's enough reduction in risk through those different mitigations that it is okay for them to operate in these scenarios. So I think that's part of the reason why we see kind of that expectation around training when we get into level 1 complex, because we need to be able to point to that and make sure that you're not just ignorant to the things that can happen and feeling comfortable because you're ignorant, but not in like a derogatory way, but just if you don't know, then you don't know. So make sure that you know so that you can at least put some mitigations and redundancies and fail-safes and and bring yourself and your operations to a comfortable level of risk.
I guess one of the other big things is extended visual line of sight and sheltered operations. Could you briefly explain those?
Yeah, so these are two new operations that Transport Canada is extending to holders of advanced certificates. So if you already hold an advanced pilot certificate, you don't need to do anything else to take advantage of these additional permissions after November 4th, but you do have to wait until November 4th to do them. So they're defining extended visual line of sight, which is a term that we've kind of been using colloquially up until this point, but under this new framework, what that means is somewhere where you can fly the drone. I like to call it baby BVLOS. So it's a situation where the pilot of the drone is not within visual line of sight of the drone itself while it's flying. They are using visual contact with the airspace that it's operating in to make sure that they're still providing that required detect and avoid functionality for other air traffic and other hazards so that you can still avoid those situations. But you can actually operate as an advanced pilot in a beyond, we'll do beyond visual line of sight, but in all lowercase, not in all caps, is a true kind of BVLOS application. And then with sheltered operations, it's similar, where you're operating not within visual line of sight, as long as the aircraft stays close to a structure, like a building. So when you're staying within that kind of shelter or the shadow of the building, less than 200 feet horizontally from it, no greater than 100 feet above it, then you can fly beyond visual line of sight without needing to have a visual observer that you're in contact with who has the drone within line of sight. You're able to just disappear for a sec as long as you're comfortable with the risk of that scenario to accomplish the goals of that flight.
And finally, let's say someone's thinking about taking the course, but they're kind of on the fence. Can they reach out to you with questions?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had quite a few questions. So we have a list of frequently asked ones on our course landing page for Level 1 Complex. But if there's anything that's not addressed there, or you want to go a little bit deeper than what those cover, then yeah, please reach out. I'm always happy to chat regulation.
Awesome. Kate Klassen, Training and Regulatory Specialist for InDro Robotics. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Scott.